Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden mother and crone, looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello, I'm Amber Jones, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Kristen Hessler and Cindy Murray.
Hello.
And welcome back to this new episode. If you are just tuning in, we are three women from different stages in life, and we're here to talk about stuff.
Just
anything and everything.
Random stuff.
Yeah, random stuff. So in the trend of that, this week we are talking about our greatest recipe fails.
Oh boy.
And man, I feel like, and it's interesting. I think like everybody that cooks goes through this, especially if they're wanting to try new things. I think everybody has a bad day in the kitchen, and some of the bad day things, it can turn into something really funny.
Yeah,
and I know that I've definitely had my ups and downs in the kitchen over the years. What about you two ladies? What is one of your greatest recipe fails?
Ooh.
I got one.
Okay.
I got a list going over here.
I got a list too.
So, and some of them are my recipe fails and some of them are other people's. So I'll tell one of mine and then I'll let you guys go and then we'll have to come back to me. But my most recent one was just literally 2-3 months ago, whatever. It was in January. We were making a cake and Mom had a Jell-O cake on her list of desserts for forever. And we just never kept getting around to making it. And she was like, make that Jell-O cake. And Raina and I were here for the holidays. So we're like, okay, we'll bake the cake. Raina follows directions really good. And she likes baking, especially cakes and cupcakes and muffins. So I put her to the task. And it was basically you take a box cake mix and a box of lemon or Jell-O, any flavor, not just lemon.
This one was lemon.
My favorite,
though.
strawberry or lemon. But you could do peach or whatever.
That one's my favorite.
Yeah. And the recipe, basically, all you do is just alter the amount of oil and eggs. And Mom had the recipe printed off. We were following it. Mind you, I'm not in my kitchen, and that is always my biggest downfall when I'm following a recipe or trying to cook something is I just really have to be in my kitchen. I can't get in someone else's car and just know how to drive and manage to turn the blinkers and the lights and all of that stuff on. Same thing with cooking. And it was during the holidays, so there's a lot of dishes, and we were baking, and I couldn't find a measuring cup for liquid measuring that I could see the numbers on because they were all kind of scratched off on Mom's measuring cups. But I thought, I'll just use this one. I can see where the 2/3 line is. His recipe said 2/3 of a cup of oil and 2/3 of a cup of water. And we make the cake and we're done. It's all the batter's mixed, oven's ready to go. And I'm showing Raina how to dust a bundt pan with flour. And Mom looks at the batter and she goes, wow, it's really runny. And I'm like, it's fine. It's cake mix. It's supposed to be runny.
It doesn't look right.
And this was after she had already gone on to us because we didn't beat the cake long enough or whatever. And I was like, you're not supposed to beat it to death. It'll make your cake flat. So we pour it in there, go to put it in the oven. And then I realized, oh my God, I put too much water. I put a cup and 2/3 of a cup of water.
And oil, too.
And a cup and 2/3 of a cup of oil.
Because it was a 2-cup measuring cup.
Yeah, it was a 2-cup measuring cup. And everything from 1 cup and down was all worn off. You couldn't see it. So I just saw 2/3 and I was like, there it is. And I didn't even think about it. I just measured it and poured it. And oh my God, that cake was the outside, because it was a bundt pan, was like crispy fried. Like it was like
the oil.
fried,
Yeah.
like a giant hush puppy.
Yeah.
And it was funny too because it was
Cornbread.
yellow like cornbread. Yeah, and the inside was like, you know those store-bought muffins and you eat them and they're just kind of like greasy, but it was like times 3. It was so oily. And I told everyone, I was like, if you eat that, you're gonna be like eating a laxative. And it was really funny too because
It had no flavor.
yeah, it like washed all the flavor out. And this is like a yellow cake mix which has its own sweet flavor, and then you add a whole Jello packet of flavor too.
So it should have been pretty lemony.
very
Yeah.
flavorful, and you add lemon.
Oh yeah, that one had
Right?
a lemon flavor.
You
in
add
it,
lemon flavor to it too, so it was like should have been like very flavorful, but it was not.
Yeah.
It was almost flavorless, and it filled the bundt pan just a little bit too much because there was like
Oh, yeah.
probably 2 cups more liquid that were supposed to be in
Mhm.
there, and it like lava boiled over.
Yeah.
It took twice as long to cook
Yep.
because it was so wet. And then it sank. It
Yeah,
crashed. It literally
fell.
sank. It fell. And then when it boiled over the oven, it like burnt. So it was like ashes at the
Stinky.
bottom. And it was stinky.
Oh,
It
my
smelled like a
God.
campfire cake. And so that was my most recent recipe fail.
Yeah, that
So
was a pretty
I
good-
have a lot of
good fail.
recipe fails. Yeah.
I've had quite a few too. Also with the Jello cake, because as you guys might recall, there was previously an episode where we were experimenting with sugar-free desserts,
Uh-huh.
and I tried to make a sugar-free Jello cake using a sugar-free cake mix and sugar-free Jello that tasted great, but did not have the right texture. It was not cake texture. It was very odd. That was one of them. I actually have a funny story about baking as well. Many, many years ago when we lived in Lubbock, I was making some, I think they were peanut butter cookies was what I was making. And I was going through my kitchen and, measuring stuff into the thing. And I'm trying to remember. I think I scooped up the first cup of the flour and I saw a weevil in it. And I'm freaky about weevils in my flour, okay? Normally if I see one, out in the trash it goes. I will go buy a whole new bag. I know that in some parts of the world weevils are just part of it because it gets so warm and they hatch. The eggs are in the flour all the time. You just don't see them, right?
You
So-
just ruined cookie and cakes for a bunch of people.
I know.
Honestly.
But anyway, so I had this thing and I saw these weevils in that first cup and I just set it aside and I ran next door to my neighbors. We lived in a duplex and it was Mark's nephew and his wife lived next door. And I just ran over there and said, "Hey, can I borrow a cup and a half of flour or whatever it was?" And she was like, "Sure." We did that all the time with each other. And I came back and I dumped the flour into the cookie mix and mixed them up and baked. But they were really thick, and they were like, I was like, why are these not turning out right? They're not the right consistency. Well, I had a friend who was there with me while I was baking. We were visiting, and she was just kind of watching me bake. And unbeknownst to me, while I was running next door, she sifted through the flour and saw, that was the only weevil that she could see in there. She flicked it out and checked the rest of the flour. There was nothing in there. So she measured it up, mixed it in. So I basically wound up with twice as much flour in the cookies as they were supposed
Oh,
to.
man.
And those were the most god-awful cookies I have ever made. Ever. And I did not know until after I had baked all of them and they tasted weird. And I was like, what in the world? And she was like, well, yeah, I put the flour in. I was just like, why didn't you tell me that before? So it wasn't just my recipe fail. It was our recipe fail. But I thought that was kind of a funny story because I was like, why didn't you just tell me you put it in there before I put the other flour in, you know? But I don't know. It was kind of funny. It was bad. It was really bad. What about you, Amber?
Oh gosh, I have many also. Like we're doing like a round of baking fails. So y'all remember those big cake pans that looked like cupcakes that you could it was
It's
like a
a
big
Wilton cake.
yeah, like
pan,
a Wilton thing, but it was also like I think they also had like the made sold on TV or whatever like a I got one year for Christmas, and my friend Mariah's birthday was coming up, and I was like, oh, well, I'll make her one big cupcake for her birthday. And I don't know what I did wrong, because, you know, I followed the directions of the cake and then followed the directions of the pan to make it look like a cupcake. And I don't know what I did wrong, because you have to like bake both sides of it and then put it together to make like the top and the bottom. And that, I swear, and this wasn't in like the cake part. It was like I didn't add, it was like maybe I didn't have enough cake or whatever. So it turned out when I stuck it together, it looked like a mushroom cake instead of a cupcake.
Oh, because the bottom was too small.
Yeah. So like I didn't have enough batter in both sides.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't even think about like maybe since it was like a big thing that I would need more batter.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I stuck it together, I'm just like, man, I just made a big mushroom. And so like her favorite was like yellow cake with chocolate icing. And so I put the chocolate icing on it, and it was like this big brown mushroom. And it was just so gross looking. It was like a mushroom, big brown mushroom. And I was just like, man, what can I do to this thing to make it look not so gross? So I grabbed some sprinkles out of the pantry and put a bunch of sprinkles on top. So
It was like a magic mushroom.
I know, yeah. She got like a big sprinkly mushroom
That's funny.
for her birthday.
You know, I've had a lot of fails that I don't know what went wrong with. Like, you know, obviously, like with the Jello cake and stuff, I know what was wrong with that. I know what was wrong with the cookies. But sometimes I've had things like I've made pies, and the pie never set up. Like,
Oh, like your pecan pie that was like soup.
well, actually, I think I figured that one out. I made a pecan pie and it never gelled up. You know, it didn't make jelly. But I think what happened with that was I used real maple syrup. My secret ingredient, so to speak, is maple syrup. And I think I used real maple syrup, not realizing it wouldn't work as well as like log cabin, quote unquote, maple syrup, which is not maple syrup.
It's like corn syrup.
It's corn syrup with maple flavoring. And back in the day when my aunt made this recipe, we didn't get maple. You couldn't just buy real maple syrup at the grocery store. Everything was like log cabin, you know, maple flavored syrup. So I'm pretty sure that's what she used, and I'm pretty sure that's what caused that one to fail. But I also did one time, my mother-in-law had this delicious cake. It's a caramel cake. So it's like chocolate, but it's caramel. And oh my God, it's so good. And I've made them before and they set up just fine. And one year I made it and it was just liquid. It was like making pudding that never sets. It was just that liquidy whatever. And it just never set. And I don't know why. Never could figure it out. So I don't know.
I made all of my recipe fails can have like a name, and this is the dirty cake.
The dirty
It
cake.
tasted like dirt.
Ew.
And so I was taking Wilton cake decorating classes, and I was also living in like a little apartment complex in like North Dallas. And I think this time of the year, like the lake was turning,
Oh yeah, the
where
water
our water
is
was
really
coming
bad.
from, and we really haven't had that problem. Knocking on wood, right now, we haven't had that problem in like a decade. But
Well, but you haven't lived in Dallas
well,
on Dallas
it's
water.
it's affected in like different
No,
areas too.
I never
like
had
even
that problem
Plano
in
used to
Carrollton.
have that horrible water too, but
Yeah.
it went away after a while. And but man, I was doing one of the icings was the it's the hard icing. I forget what it's called, but like you can make like flowers and stuff with it, but they're hard. Color Fast or something. I don't remember.
Don't ask me.
Sorry,
It's been a long time.
it's not
ago.
like the cookie decorating that you see on like Instagram and stuff that's really popular right now. It's not fondant, but it's like powdered sugar and just a little bit of water. And it's hard, so you can like make sugar sculpture kind of things with it. And so I was taking this class, and what you do is you bake a bunch of cakes, because you do like a different cake every week that you decorate in class, and you ice your cake with the base icing, and then you take it to class, and then they teach you how to do like whatever designs on your cake that week. And so I baked my cake a couple of days ahead, made my white icing, had iced my cake. It was in the fridge or a freezer or whatever, ready to go to class, and I had like this Tupperware that I kept it in, and I opened the Tupperware, and it smelled.
Oh.
It smelled like dirt. And I had made all of my icings in the bag like the night before too, so they were all bagged up in the piping bags. And I'm sitting there in class with a smelly cake.
Oh.
I don't know if anyone else could smell it, but it smelled like lake water. It literally smelled like I went to like the creek and took the bog and made icing with bog and schmuck
Yeah,
from
Dallas
the creek.
water used to
Yeah.
be so bad that people didn't even want to brush
It was
their teeth
horrible.
with it. It was
And
so
like
bad.
I literally like was like, I'm done. I don't want to make cakes anymore. Like that, it grossed me out to the point where like I didn't even want to eat cake for the longest time because and I didn't want to cook. Like I thought about it and I was like, dang, like I cook food with this water,
Yeah.
And from now on, like I think if I ever like make my own icing, I'll probably just use bottled water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because it ruined it for me. So there's my dirty cake icing.
Well, I have an eggy ice cream story.
Eggy ice cream.
Eggy ice cream. So I have my grandmother's old ice cream recipe, and it uses eggs, and we do not use cooked eggs in our ice cream. It's raw eggs, and one time I usually just mix the stuff in the ice cream machine and then top it off with milk, and the ice cream machine mixes everything up. And one time we were having like a summer party or whatever, and I was making ice cream, and I dumped all my stuff in there. Well, I didn't beat my eggs before I threw them in there. Because I was distracted and I was talking to somebody or whatever, and I threw my eggs in the ice cream machine. I'm serious. This is so bad. And topped it off with the milk and closed it up and put the ice in and got it running. And, the ice cream machine runs, and I take it out and I start scooping into it, and I find a frozen egg yolk.
Gross. That is so gross.
Frozen egg yolk. And I'm just like, oh my God, don't eat this ice cream.
Frozen
it's like
egg
really
yolk.
gross. Yeah. So, yeah.
Dang,
It
those
just
are always
never
so
mixed in.
disappointing when you like wait
Oh,
so
I know.
long and you're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That's
Because
why
I
often,
usually make ice cream like once a year. It's probably like 4th of July or something,
yeah. Those are
Yeah.
the times when I kind of lose my appetite after cooking because you put all this effort in.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's a big letdown. You just don't want to eat.
Oh, yeah.
afterwards.
Oh man, yeah.
So I'm ready to tell other people's recipe fails. 'Cause I
Okay.
have so many, but they're not like epic. They're just like
Oh,
me
I
being
have
stupid.
I do have,
Okay,
so
I
I
have
have
an
one more
epic
epic
one,
one.
yeah.
but
So-
y'all go ahead.
whenever Travis and I started going to the gym, our schedules are a little different. So, I don't want Raina staying up all night and having to eat dinner at like 9 o'clock.
Right.
So Travis cooks dinner he starts at like 5:30, and then they eat while I'm still at work, and then I go to the gym and I come home and eat. And Travis was, exploring like different vegetable sides for Raina just to give her some variety, but we're eating on this kind of strict diet plan where we eat like kind of the same things every day. So he was thinking outside the box and wanted to make her some carrots because she likes carrots instead of broccoli that we were having. And so there were a lot of carrots left over. So he was like, hey, I made some carrots for Raina, but you can have some. And I'm like, yes, something besides broccoli. So I go and I scoop myself some carrots and I heat them up in the microwave. And I took one bite out of it and like I had to spit it out immediately.
Oh, no.
It was so salty.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God, you oversalted the carrots. And he was like, I didn't put salt in them at all. And I'm like, well, carrots don't naturally taste like this salty. And I'm like, dude, eat these carrots. He didn't eat them.
Right.
Because he made them for Raina. He ate the broccoli. And I was like, I can't eat this. It was like eating salt. Like direct from... So come to find out that Travis found a recipe online that were like stovetop cooked carrots that had like sugar in them.
Uh-huh.
And he thought he was measuring out sugar, but it was salt.
Oh.
Because I have poured in, we have like these like
canisters
on the countertop, and there's like flour, cornmeal, sugar, and salt.
Oh.
And he couldn't tell the difference between the two, but I know the difference between the two. But I check just in case. I'll do a little on my finger just to taste it because, a third of a cup of sugar in carrots is one thing, but a third of a cup of salt in carrots is another. And I was like, well, let me rinse them off. No, that didn't help.
No, they soaked into it.
It was terrible.
So did Raina eat them?
Yeah, she ate them, and she didn't say anything.
Oh my gosh.
So along the lines of people not saying anything when there's a fail, and Kristen probably remembers this one. I made some chicken spaghetti one time, and I'd been working in the kitchen, and I cooked up my chicken spaghetti. It's like a one pot kind of thing. This one, it's not like the baked kind. And so I made it on the stove and I brought it to the table, and I guess you guys were dishing it up and I was doing something else or something, getting ready. Maybe I was feeding Steven or something. So I was a little bit later coming to the table, and Kristen and Mark are just sitting there eating. And I'm like, okay. I sit down and I dish up my little plate. I take one bite and I nearly it was so burnt.
That's
really
burnt. All you can taste.
I have a
burnt.
story
so
like
burnt.
that
And
too.
Kristen and Mark were just eating it like it was nothing, And I'm like, why are you eating this? This is burnt. And they're like, well, we didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Oh my gosh, I have this. The first time I ever made chicken and dumplings, and I was like, this is when Mike was living with me. You had just moved out, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna make chicken. I'm gonna make this guy a chicken and dumplings. We didn't date. He was a friend of mine, but anyway, he was a coworker that was my next roommate after Kristen. And so I was going to make my grandma's chicken and dumplings. So I called my mom for the recipe and I wrote everything down, or at least I thought I wrote everything down, blah, 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 blah. So this was like my first time ever attempting anything like this. So, I was like, I'm going to cook the chicken faster and turn the water on, high boil or whatever. Yeah. You already know where this is going. So then I put the dumplings in and I make everything. And Mike comes from work and he's so excited that I made him chicken and dumplings. He gets a big bowl of it. He takes one bite of it and he goes, that's really good. And then he sticks it in the fridge and he goes, I'm going to eat this later. And he leaves. And I was like, weird. That is so weird because I hadn't even tried it yet. And I took one bite of it and I was like, oh my God.
You're like, how nice of him.
I was like, and so I didn't say anything to him. And so I eyed that chicken. I dumped out the rest and I eyed the chicken and dumplings to see if he came back to eat it.
Oh God.
And to see if he came back to eat it, And a couple of days passed, and I was like, "So, why haven't you been eating your chicken and dumplings?" And he was like,
so mean.
and he says to me, he goes, "Oh, well, And I was like, "Uh-huh." And he goes, "Okay, I can't stand burnt food. I just didn't want to say anything." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I tried it after you left the room." And they ruined the pot. No, they burnt so bad. The chicken burnt so bad on the bottom of that pot that I had to throw the pot out. Like it was like thick black on the bottom of that
Yeah,
pot.
that's the way this was. Yeah, it was burnt. There was no.
I still remember that taste.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
I do. I
shudder
remember it.
thinking about it. It was bad,
Yeah.
and they ate lots of bites. They were
Yeah.
just eating it, and I was just like, "Okay, that's love right there."
Oh man.
That was terrible. Oh, terrible. I was like, "Don't eat that."
Ooh! I know. I have. We were talking about greatest. This one takes the cake. Okay. And this is my dumb fault. It was when I was living with my mom and grandma, and I went and I found a recipe. I forgot even what it was, but it involved the sweet peppers.
Mm.
It was like stuffed sweet peppers or something. Some kind of like stir fry with sweet peppers.
Okay.
And I go to the store and I wasn't paying attention when I was buying.
Whoops.
And I bought habaneros instead.
No.
My poor grandma. I made
Oh,
this
gosh.
whole thing. I made this recipe. And I put it in front of my grandma. Her and I are sitting. And she's taking a bite of it. And she has this weird look on her face. And she goes, "Well, this is kind of hot." And I go, "What do you mean?" And I took a bite of it, and I was like,
And I'm like, your eyes weren't burning when you cooked it or anything.
No, right? Burned your fingers. Yeah. Because I mean, when I touch some of those Thai chilies and stuff, man, that
Yeah.
burns your skin.
"Oh, my poor grandma.
Oh,
She can't stand anything hot." And she took a bite of
Oh,
my habanero stir fry.
Oh.
This is kind of hot. I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I almost killed that lady.
Oh.
Wow. Well, my mom almost killed my quesadilla maker.
Oh.
Amber,
That
what's
was
the
the
worst
recipe
thing you
fail.
think you could do to the quesadilla maker?
Oh, I tried to do peanut butter and jelly quesadillas one time,
Oh.
and it like exploded on the inside. There was peanut butter and jelly everywhere. So I don't know. Is it worse than that?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. This was right after Christmas, and we decided we had fajitas for Christmas, and we decided we were gonna do quesadillas with the leftover fajita meat, right?
Uh-huh.
And so we're just each making our own, load it up and do your
Yeah.
little quesadilla. And I think I was like one of the last people, wasn't I?
You were second to last.
Yeah, and so I go in there and I load up my tortilla and everything, and I close up the lid, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I forgot to put the top tortilla.
Oh no.
Okay, and what's really funny is that she chopped up like so much meat because we had chicken and beef and bell peppers
there was
and
a ton
onions.
of it. Yeah,
And I was like, I think you chopped up too much meat.
yeah.
And she was like, it'll be fine. I'll make it work. And then she was like, oh, yeah, I couldn't get it all in there. Here's some extra meat for you, Kristen.
Right,
I
and
cut you some
and I
too.
closed it,
Yeah,
and when I
it was
closed
loaded.
it was loaded up and
Oh, and-
lots of cheese because I put cheese on both sides.
And it was funny because everybody's, like, I made everyone.
Nobody else's would close. She was
Yeah.
having a hard time getting it to close. And
'Cause
when
I
I did
stuffed them
mine,
too
it
full.
just closed right up.
And
I'm
she was like, I got mine to close. And I was like, shut up.
Oops.
Yeah.
And then that's when we realized, it was
Oh,
all melted.
The cheese was stuck on it, and it was squeezing out the sides, and it ran down in the little
back of
hinge
it.
of the joint.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, it was awful. But the lucky thing about it is it's like Teflon, and it just, the cheese just cooked to a crisp, and I just, had a
It
little
was like
plastic.
pulling off in sheets.
Yeah, so I had to do a lot of picking, but we got it off.
Oh gosh, I
But
hate
that was
cleaning.
a mess.
I hate cleaning those things. Those are the worst to clean
Yeah.
when cheese gets down in there.
Yeah, that one was a mess. That was pretty funny though.
That was.
It was. I knew immediately. I was like, oh no. I think I just pulled it open. I
opened
opened
it. Was
it.
done, and it was like, wow, it's all cheesy. Like,
Whoops. Yep. That was bad. I've done things like that before too.
Have you ever had a Fry Daddy?
I did
you
have
hear
a
that?
Fry Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my ex Tim and I, like when we lived together, I had a Fry Daddy, and he liked to make fries a
Uh-huh.
lot. He made fries a lot. Well, one time he was making some fries, and I was in the kitchen doing something, and he was like scooping them out, and they had like black stuff all over them.
oh God, I know exactly what happened.
And he's like freaking out. What is this? What is this? And I was like, did you take the lid off when you turned the Fry Daddy on? And he was like, oh. And the lid had melted
Melted
down
Oh my
into the
God.
Fry
That
Daddy.
happened to me too. So whenever I lived with Crystal, we would make French fries with
Yeah.
the Fry Daddy, and it was like, you use it once, you got to use it like a million times. So I would let it cool, and clean the oil,
Uh-huh.
and then once it was cool, it had like a plastic lid, like a Crisco lid,
Right.
or
Yeah,
coffee lid. It was like a
something
black
that,
lid,
yeah.
kind of rubbery, and you just put the lid on it, and you could leave it out on the counter or put it away or whatever for a
Right.
while, and yeah, same thing. Someone went, oh, let's make fries. Let me get it warmed up. And they went and plugged it in and left it. But mine didn't melt like all the way into it to the point where he didn't
Oh,
recognize it anymore. But it
Golly,
was,
yeah, it was
yeah,
in
it was
there.
ruined.
It was
yeah,
like,
mine was ruined.
yeah.
And it was like dribbled down the sides. It had like
Yeah.
black plastic melting down the
yeah,
sides.
there was like
I
that
have-
thick in there.
I have a related story. When I first got married, I had a microwave, and I had a recipe. The microwave came with a recipe book, and it had a recipe for peanut brittle. And I decided I was going to make some peanut brittle in the microwave, right? So I got all the ingredients and everything. And I'm, keep in mind, I'm like 18 years old here. So.
This has like 3 ingredients. in
Oh
it,
yeah,
too.
it's like sugar and Karo syrup and peanuts, And so I mixed them up and put them in the microwave, and it starts cooking and la la la, and it runs. The timer stops, and you reach in and you grab your bowl and you mix in. I think it's baking soda and butter and I think that's what it is, and the vanilla, right? And you just whisk it together really quick, and the baking soda makes it foam up and makes it that real airy brittle, right?
texture.
And so I reach in and grab the handle of my bowl, and the top rim of the bowl just comes away.
Oh.
And the rest of the bowl just melts.
Oh my God.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was
Was it plastic?
It was a plastic bowl. I didn't even think
Oh.
about the candy getting it. cooked. I'd had that bowl in the microwave before, but I'd never cooked candy in it. Candy gets hot, and it just melted the bowl all over.
Oh no!
All over the turntable of my thing, and I had to like work really hard to get all that plastic off of that turntable.
wow.
And it was like, yeah, I had no idea.
Oh, melted lava.
It was
Plastic.
literally the bowl I picked up, and like an inch of the bowl
That's so funny.
just came away, and I was like, oh,
I'm sure
oh
your
my
mind
God.
is like, what?
What? Yeah, because the rest of it it fell. It was just sitting there like normal,
Holding it together.
it together, and then all of a sudden, when I picked that up, it just collapsed
Crazy.
and just yeah, it was
That's
weird.
crazy.
It was very weird.
You haven't really destroyed appliances like that, or I mean, I'm sure I have. I'm sure I've melted. I mean, I put a hot pan on top of your like measuring cup and melted the top of that.
Oh no! And I had a Tupperware 2-quart mixing bowl, the little mixing pitcher, and you set it on top of the hot stove.
Oh,
one
yeah,
time.
I melted it on the
Oh.
top and
Melted
the
it-
bottom.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, both places. Yeah.
Yeah, and somehow I got my pan out of the oven and it got on the Mrs. Baird's bread and it like
Oh my God.
transferred onto the pan like the red, white, and blue.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no!
Mrs. Baird's,
Yeah.
on my pan. That never came off. It just ended up like baking into
Baking
it
into it,
forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had some fails for sure.
Oh man! Well, what are we talking about next week?
Next week is how to do a great job interview.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tips for a successful job
That'll
interview.
be very helpful.
Yes.
That'll be a very good
Um,
episode.
Yeah. I'm hoping so too.
Yeah.
It should be interesting.
Cool. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about? Or are we?
No, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I've run out of stories in the kitchen. I'm sure as soon as we turn
oh yeah,
turn it
I'll
off,
sure,
I'll
come up
think,
with
yeah.
oh my
lots,
gosh,
lots and lots more. But yeah.
Okay. Well, so I want you guys to tell us your best recipe fails. So let's continue the conversation on our Facebook page, on our group, MMC Chat, and you come at us with all of your recipe fails. We want to hear about it. Or if you have any thoughts or opinions on our recipe fails, we want to hear that too.
Have you
So-
done any of the things that we did?
Yeah, have you done any of those wrong things? Like especially like the baking fails. Those are probably the easiest to do. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, hit us up on MMC Chat. Check out our blog. Check out our website. Give us a like. Subscribe. Write us a note. Send us an email. We want to hear from you guys.
Yep.
Yeah. And while we're at it, I'm going to thank Cake Mix Studios and Creative Audio Tech for our equipment and our music.
Yep.
And we'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Yeah.
Back next week.
Bye.
Bye.